So pretty much everything I did was in the lecture materials today. You can also hide your Google address or your Google API using an environmental variable and settings, in Django settings. I can show you that shortly. But your challenge for today and tomorrow and this weekend is going to be utilizing 3 different APIs in one application. So it's called the Ticketmaster News / and Google Maps Embed APIs. So you're going to be using 3 of these APIs. And notice, so for our landmarks, we actually had a database that stores, that actually stores like the actual landmark data. But you technically don't need a database when you're interacting with APIs. So such as this Ticketmaster News and Google Maps Embed API, you don't need a backend database to store your data. So for example, so I just kind of want to run through this Ticketmaster challenge. So this challenge is going to be rather nebulous, and that's by design. Most software engineering features are going to come as a laundry list of wants from your client. It is up to you to figure out how it works and how to implement it. So we're going to sort of get into agile development as far as kind of introducing it and kind of what it looks like, not what agile development looks like, but essentially what you get, what requests you get from a client. So when developing an app or feature using agile methodology, you want to write the new feature from the perspective of the end user. This is called a user story in agile development. For example, as a user, I want to be able to search for artists' concerts from the homepage and be redirected to a list of where their next 5 concerts will be displayed on a map, and the 10 most recent news stories about the artists sorted by article popularity. So all this stuff right here can be done essentially in one by clicking a submit form. So if you want to know more about user stories, here are some examples. So in your group project, so you have a request from a client. You've been contacted by a client to build a new application. They'll pay you $50,000 to build a minimum viable product over the next 4 days. If all goes well, they'll hire your team over the next 6 months, and they have a budget of $400,000. So a high level overview from the client. Your client would like to build an application which allows users to search for concerts and news. So there are some must-haves for the application or the project, and some nice-to-haves. So things that if you have the time, you can continue to develop them. So here are some must-haves from the client. So required functionality. A user must be able to search artists' concerts, must be able to display the concert's locations on a map, must be able to display the news related to the artist that the user searched for, such as like right here, if you have a search for and you search Lady Gaga, it's going to search through the Ticketmaster API in addition to a news API, and you're going to render like the locations on a map of where the concerts are located at, as well as some news information about the artist you search for. And must be able to search for news independently from the artist. Example, search for news about coding boot camps. Must be, quote, pretty. Here are some nice to haves. Ability to create users, log users, and ability for users to tag I want to go to their favorite concerts, and ability for users to view a list of concerts they've tagged I want to go. So here's an example of a user story. As a user, I want to be able to search for artists' concerts from the homepage and be redirected where the next 5 concerts will be displayed on a map and the 10 most recent news stories. So each concert will have its own Google map. Don't display multiple points on a single map. So each individual concert will have its own map. So here are the user stories. As a user, I can filter news based on categories: business, entertainment, category, or general, health, science, sports, and technology. So these are dedicated news, search news pages. So just read through here. So you're going to have to be using the Ticketmaster API. You're going to have to create an account. So I've already created an account here. The Ticketmaster API is it's difficult to parse through the data, specifically what URL you want to use or what API endpoint you want to use. And their documentation isn't that great. So notice all these different API endpoints you can use. So like event search, here are all the keywords you can search by. So entities by like an event ID, an attraction ID, a venue ID, postal code. You can utilize this to search for concerts. But I would recommend using the keyword ID. So in here, look at using the keyword parameter. Specifically, if you look up here, here are some examples of different API endpoints. So if I come in here and I click this and I literally just copy this into the URL, this is what I get back. This is JSON. So notice how big this file is, or this JSON response. So you have to parse through that data and figure out what events you want to extract. So notice.
Can you add keywords?
So yes. So if you look at the API, so right here, this API endpoint goes by country code, API key. So it's just, this literally just grabs all the events in the United States. But here, this API key, or this API endpoint, search for events sourced by universe, don't necessarily, in the United States with the keyword devjam. So if I click on this one and open up this one in the browser, I don't get a whole lot. But if the keyword right here, I'm going to get rid of the source because I don't know what that is. I guess I'll keep country code in the US just for all intents and purposes. But for devjam, let's say I want to look at like Post Malone. All right, nothing there. Do I need, probably nothing's going on right now. So right here. So I search for concerts from Post Malone and I get this back. It's an object with a keyword of underscore embed links and pages, or in page. So if I look at embed or embedded, I have events, which is an array. So it's an array with an object, so a single object that has a name of Rolling Loud. Here's the images for it. But so the goal is, all right, you search for an event. Say I search for Post Malone. I get this back from my request as a response. Now I have to parse through this JSON object and look for the location so I can inject it into and create a Google Maps. So if I look, I can see promoter links. So I'm just looking to see if I can find, so I've got another embed. And now I've got my venues of where all my concerts are located at. So Hard Rock Stadium, it's got some images. It's got the city, so I've got the Miami, Florida state code in the country, US. I've got the address right here, or I also have the longitude and latitude, so I can use that for the Google Maps.
You said before, if we use Latin long, we don't need the whole street address, city, country, all that.
Correct. So you might want to use this because it might be easier, or you can extract it all from the city, state, address. So that's how you get that back and inject that into the Google Maps. So hint, hint, use this one. The next is news. So if I come over here, use the news. So the Ticketmaster API, it's free. You get 5,000 free calls a day. You're probably not going to go over that. But the hardest part is parsing through that response. The next is the news. So you have to get news from that. They've got this free news API. You kind of have to log it. You have to get an API key from it. But this is super straightforward. It's really easy. The documentation's great. You can look at the different endpoints. So for the top headlines, if I click here, if I want all the top headlines, I can click that. Then it has all the articles. So it returns an array of objects, and each object is an article. So if I wanted to look for, where is it? Top headlines, source. So you can look at different language. So you can even look for languages and key. So if I can search for everything, so here's everything about Bitcoin. But if I wanted to search for Post Malone, here's everything, all the articles related to like Post Malone or something. So let's actually go back to this landmarks. And instead of detail, let's actually create a URL. This is totally unrelated. That's just for like the top news stories. I'm gonna go to top headlines. Top headlines. So I created a top headlines. So I need to go to my views, create def top headlines, takes in a request, and it's going to return, render request, just say map / top headlines.html and some data. And data is literally just like an empty object for right now. And then inside my map, I'm just going to hurry up and create a top headlines.html and HTTP. All right. I just want to make sure this works right now. Where am I at? Say top headlines. All right, what happened? So order. I messed something up. My URLs, headline. Why isn't that working?
Do you have to do landmark / top headlines?
Oh,
because
yep,
it's in
you're
the
right.
app.
Thank you. Oh, there we go, top headlines. So in my view, since I'm not actually using an iframe to render a map or anything, I need to use this library that we give you. It's called Python's request library. So you need to read through the documentation. You actually pip install it. So I'm just going to do it quickly. Clear pip install requests. And at the very top of here, I need to import requests. I'm just importing it as REQ because I'm going to be using the request library a lot. So in the request, if you read through the documentation, to do a GET request, so like example here, I'm going to use this request.get. So I'm going to say like response equals request.get, but I want to get all the top headlines. So I'm going to come over here, grab the top headlines. I'm going to So I just want to make sure this something returns from here. So, okay, that's what I should get back. So I'm putting that right here for the top headlines. Now, if I wanted to type in a form, I could take in some like parameter like search query and inject that into my API endpoint. But for here, I'm just grabbing all the top headlines. I'm going to print the response. So if I come over here, where did it go? If I refresh it, oh, run the server. So I get top headlines and I get a response, this 200 response. But now I need to somehow turn this into actual JSON. Where is it? So I get the request, response.get. So if I come down here, I can do response.status code, which can return a 200. So you get a lot of data on your response. If I scroll down here, you do response.text or do response.json, which converts that response. So response.json. I refresh that. Now I get this returned. So this is that JSON response. Status 100, status okay, total results 38 articles, which is an array. So I can say, hey, this is a JSON response equals right there. And notice the articles. I come back here to my API. There's an articles key, which is an array of articles. So I can literally say data equals, or I can say like articles equals JSON response, and I want to extract the articles from that. And now I can say like data equals articles. Now I'm passing just an array of articles into my top headlines.
So now are you
I have
gonna
a
do
question,
something-
Tom.
Sorry.
Yep.
So you can pull all this data. I see it's always also pulling like sources for images.
Mhm.
Would you be able to use that link to source your images, or do you have to download them and host them yourself?
Let's try to let's see if we can do that. So in my views, I'm passing in an array of articles that I'm getting back from this API endpoint for this news API. I'm turning it into a JSON response, or I'm turning it into JSON by doing .json. So it's the JSON response. I'm extracting just the articles from that. So I'm literally just extracting these articles. I'm assigning it to that variable. And as Emma said, she noticed that, hey, there's like a URL and URL to image. So if I just click on that, here's that image. So, and I'm passing all that into a dictionary with a keyword of articles. So this articles value is just an array of articles. So in our template, I can say for article in articles, I can do H2, do like article.title. I can do article.description. Oh, what's going on there? So I just want to make sure. So I've got article.title and article.description. And then over here, I can do N4. So if I refresh that, go back to here, I get articles, the title, and the description. You said if I have the URL to the image, I can use that as well if I wanted to create an image tag. And do just article dot URL to image. Alt. Dot, I don't know, ID. Is there even an ID on here? Source name or something. Let's do author. So if I refresh this, there we go. It's kind of a large, so I can even, where's my landmark list? I wonder if I can do a height and there we go. And now it's okay if the images are stretched a little.
So would a website like get mad at you for using their bandwidth like this, or is this usually okay if you're doing it through their API?
Oh, it's totally fine if you're using an API. Now, if you're making like 1 million requests a second, it'll probably crash it and they'll ban you from using their API for a certain amount of time. We've had that happen before in the past, where if you only get like so many requests per day or per 24 hours, in JavaScript, it's easy to get into an infinite loop, and people sometimes get their API requests stuck in an infinite loop. So it keeps on pinging their server, and they're like, "Oh, you exceeded your maximum limit. You can't access it for so many hours."
I actually, I did exactly that when learning React. I banned myself from my own API. So a good practice I would recommend if you don't want to accidentally ban yourself for like 24 hours because you wrote your React hooks wrong or whatever, is query the API with something like Postman or anything that lets you get the data out one time, copy that into like a JSON file, and then just work from that until you get it flushed out enough to where you can start actually hitting their API with a web request. I wish I would have done that in the beginning because I think I banned myself at least twice on two different APIs. So, but yeah, I would make a copy of some JSON, like practice data even, or you could write it yourself if it's a pretty small subset of data. You could write your own JSON file and then just load it in, use a Python module like the JSON module and read that file in. And then you can like just work from a hard-coded file to practice sending the requests back to the page. And then once you're ready, start tapping the API to get that JSON request back. And then you won't ban yourself, especially in React.
All right. So this is a group project because you need to use the Ticketmaster API in conjunction with this news API in conjunction with Google Maps Embed API. So again, just here are the must-haves for the user story right here. And you can filter news based off of category, business, entertainment, general, health, science. So the API is actually kind of already set up with categories. So you can actually already have a link based off of what you type in, or essentially whatever URL you go to, you can filter based off of health, science, sports, and technology. So here are the request parameters. You can use different countries, category, source, the keyword or phrase, page size, and like how many you want, what the number of results you want to return per page. So I think that's also in the requirements. So like returning the 20 most recent news articles. You can also sort by relevancy. Anyway, does anybody have any questions about this project? So
What does it do again?
what's that? When's it
What
due?
is- Yeah.
Just due Monday. So don't even start these nice to haves until you get these done. So literally just work on one thing at a time, you know, make sure that you're using the right API endpoint for the Ticketmaster. Make sure, make sure you're able to render the map of where that thing is located at, that concert is located at. And then, doing all, displaying the news associated with that artist. And you can make multiple GET request responses here. So like this could be like a news response. This could be Ticketmaster response, and then go to the Ticketmaster API.
Hey, Tom,
Yep.
are we doing like a Git repo and adding collaborators and all of that and everything?
Yep.
this?
So how to get start? Get organized. Just have one person in your group create a GitHub repository on their personal GitHub, or they can just fork over this over to them, and just create a Django project and push it to your newly created repository or the forked repository. Then whoever created the repository or has it on their personal GitHub, under manage access, you can invite your group members, and then the other group members, remember, don't fork it over to your personal GitHub, just clone it down to your local machine, because you all want to be working on the same repository. And then you can, all work on separate branches. You can even add branch protection rules to prevent people from pushing directly to the master. And you can also look into certain tools to stay organized as a group. So like Trello is one of them. See, these are actually previous group projects. And then pair program. And communicate. You're going to be in groups of 4, and just over communicate with each and every one of your group members. If one group member's got something going on or they have to step away from their computer, just communicate when they come back, just communicate with them, what you accomplished and what direction you're all going in. So the first thing I would do is just go through and do the landmarks on your own. And